All right, traders, welcome to your recap. This is Wednesday, January 24th, and a lot of stuff to cover again, so I'll try to talk fast because I like to keep these videos about, around under 15 minutes. And there's a lot of things going on because of a lot of currency moves, a lot of commodity moves, the dollar getting cheaper. So we could look at UUP. I think this was the catalyst for a lot of the commodity moves today. You had the dollar down a percentage, which is a lot for a currency to move. And sure enough, it looks like it is continuing to break down here and break lower. So this is a pretty interesting trend that's taking place and taking shape here. The dollar going lower here and a big gap down, now way oversold. So we'll see if it kind of backs and fills a little bit. But certainly things like gold got a big uplift today. Now breaking out of this downward trend line. So now above that, so you could basically use this downward trend line as a place to go long or just to kind of stay long if you've got some positions on. And we've certainly seen a lot of call buying within this group. Names like Newmont, which I got completely out of today, and what I will look to do is probably roll this position. But Newmont has been a big winner, gap up at this point. What got me out of this trade today is we saw a put buyer in here as well. So maybe this backs and fills a little bit, and then I decide to get back into it. But that was a hell of a trade that we put on Newmont right on that break of the downward trend line. We're also seeing names like or I could just pick another name as well. We're seeing call buyers in names like Goldcorp, which we saw yesterday, actually off the highs decently, but certainly a nice move up today of about 1%. So, this group has definitely been seeing some call buying. PAAS, which is the a silver miner as well. We saw a lot of silver calls go up today as well. Silver now just moving above the 200-day moving average. I could probably draw a trend line in here as well, which I'll get that going for tomorrow. But definitely some silver buyers as well. So, like I said, the move in the currencies set off a domino effect. Also, bonds are another area that maybe a lot of retail traders are not looking at. Some of them are. I know TBT is a name that I see being circled back and forth, but has not broken. There was a lot of chatter about the move in bonds today, but it did not break below where we were just a few days ago. So it is what it is. It's below a downtrend. We talked about IEF in last week's newsletter. This is the 7 to 10 year, which broke the 200-day moving average. Is more in a downtrend than I think anything else in terms of the longer curve names. But yeah, this really affects things. Same thing with the dollar. You've got a lot of ripple effects in terms of when the dollar goes low, what type of equities, what type of commodities go higher, and the same thing when bonds, the price of bonds goes lower and the yield goes higher, it really affects your financials. We saw a lot of call buying in BAC today. So Bank of America, somebody looks like it wants to go higher. I actually got into, I know it's kind of crazy getting long up here, but that was one of my trades today because they just went after Bank of America so many times. It kind of pushed me to get into a trade into this particular group. And I think that is, the side that you want to stay on as long as rates are rising. You could certainly go into some different things here. You can go into the XLF if you don't want to pick individual names. We did see another Wells Fargo call buyer at the end of the day as this moved higher, but you can kind of take your pick. Or just own the whole group. KBE is the bank, all banks, and that has seen some call buying in the last couple weeks as well. So that's a definite move that's taken place. So looking at today's performers, gold miners were the best performing group. And then just a mix of other things going on. The steel names were pretty strong today. Retail was also pretty strong as well. And then you had some underperformers. The airliners were down a lot. The Jets ETF was your worst performer. SMH was down, but a couple names reported after hours, and they look pretty strong. So I viewed the move in the semiconductors today as a buying opportunity. We went long Lam Research for earnings today. I also have a number of positions that a couple other positions. I'm overweight the semiconductors again, which I was for the better part of 2017. Not in the fourth quarter, but of 2017, but I've got a couple positions now at this point, and you can see Applied Materials is one of the names that I'm long. You could see that getting a nice boost off of Lam Research and Xilinx, which I believe was also up as well. So nice pop in these names. Really gave a great opportunity to get long. The movement by Texas Instruments, I think was overdone to the downside. I think that's what Jim Cramer said as well. They were also way overbought going into their quarter, so it really gave you a nice. And we put this Lam Research trade on a little bit earlier in the day because it took out two VPOC levels. It really set up nice for to play the dip in this one. So we'll see where it starts the day tomorrow, but is all the way up to 218 after hours. So really, really nice. The other name that I put on today, besides Bank of America, was SGMS. So this is a name that I've been kind of waiting in scientific games. So we've seen call buyers, the last couple weeks. We also saw one today. So I love it when they buy the dip in some of these names that they've been in before. A move right into the 50-day moving average. Hello, what a great place to try a trade into some support for this one. So I did not put on a big trade in this one, as I'm practicing what I preach, which is what I tell traders all day long is, hey, this market, who knows where we are in this upswing, but we know that we're way overbought. So for me, I'm not putting on any really large positions up here. I think that we'll get ample opportunity. We've had a great month of price action, great performance. I'm up, I believe, 40% now year to date in my option portfolio. My cash portfolio, I'm up close to 10%. 9%, excuse me, in my cash portfolio. So there's no reason to be a hero up here. If we start to roll over a little bit, and I was explaining this in the room, and I'll if you've heard me talk about this today, I'll say it again. But if you're riding this wave up, right, there's going to be one day where we're going to roll over. It's just something that happens in the market, right? The market can't go up in a straight line forever. At one point, we're going to get a reversal. So it kind of looked like we were going to get it today, but buyers came back in. So what will happen on that reversal day? You're going to be down probably in P&L, or at least I will be down in P&L when we roll over. Why is that? Because I'm still exposed to the market, and I'm not going to try to predict when that reversal day occurs. Am I lightening up exposure as we continue to get more and more overbought? Yeah, I'm doing that, and I'm putting on smaller positions, but you're not going to be able to prevent a down day, and you can't really be afraid of having negative P&L, especially if you're like me and have had a great month. Giving a tiny bit back once we actually move down a little bit is part of the game, right? But as long as you're taking profits, maybe taking a little bit smaller positions in names that are not overbought up here, it won't be that bad for you if you're following the rinse and repeat drill, putting on positions. I talked about the perfect scenario, which we've had a lot this week, where you put on a position at some point in the day, you're able to take two targets or a few targets, and then keep the last piece on as a runner. So that's been really, really nice. And we talked about that in Alibaba yesterday. What I did yesterday is I was actually in a day trade for Alibaba. And then what I did is I took the day trade off and I rolled out and up, right? Trade like the professional investors that you see on the tape that are trading options. What do they do a lot of times? They don't just take the position off and say, I made some money and I'm happy. What they do is they take a good portion of the trade off, if not all of it. And what they do is they roll it out and up. So if they're in March calls, they take the position, take that March position off, and then they buy June calls or they buy July calls, and they go a little further out and strike, take some money off the table, but they're still participating. So we've been doing a lot of that in the trading room, and that's really worked well because again, it's all about having big winners in the game and not just taking position off just because you made a little bit of money in it. So Alibaba, I want to stay long. I was really interested to see where Alibaba closed today. If it held above here, it did. It's not the best candle in the world, but it did hold above this breakout zone. So I'm going to give it a shot. I took a little bit more profits today, but I'm still long Alibaba. And a couple of the other Chinese internet names worked pretty well today too. JD.com, which continues to see short-term call buying. We took a couple targets in that one. as well today. So just to review, I think I've kind of been hitting some of the price action and the and some of the option activity that we saw today. Just again, a higher than normal amount of trades today. But let me give you a good example of one name that we saw and why you need to follow your own system. Take for example TSM. This is Taiwan Semiconductor. They bought calls the day after they reported earnings last week, all the way out to January 2019. Today, a big block of July 50 calls goes up. But what also goes up, besides the July 50 calls, puts are also swept for March. And it looks like yeah. So you don't fully know the picture ever, and you have to kind of take everything for like a grain of with a grain of salt, and then make your own determination. So I'm not in this one, full disclosure, but I've been looking at it, and I've been noticing that they're really going after calls. But then they bought some shorter date puts, so you need to be able to, if you structure a trade yourself, you need to put levels out there where you're going to get out of the trade if it goes against you. This one I'm just kind of watching. I think it's interesting. It's fallen back, did get overbought. Maybe if it comes back and retests this breakout zone, maybe that would be a great place. Or you could start a position, either going out to what I would be looking at is going out far. That's what they're doing. They're going all the way out to July. And like I said, last week they went to January. So somebody's in it for the long term. Maybe they're expecting a little bit of short-term volatility. I don't know. You can paint your own picture with what they're doing here. But you have to, for me, I will set up my own levels. I'm not going to rely just alone on the option activity that we're seeing. I think it's interesting that somebody's going after long-term calls. But again, devising your own plan, your own system, and that's what we do in the trading room all day. ILG, this is another one that's worked really well on option activity. They went and they bought calls in this one, February calls towards the end of last week. They went in and they bought March calls at the beginning of this week, and boom, off it goes. IGT, this is a position I've been sitting in since January 5th, now starting to wake up a little bit. And we saw some call buying in this one as well today. So I took one target, and so taking a little bit off the table and then looking for this thing to get back to 52-week highs. Where it's not going to work, top of value. If it happens to sink, as well as the 50-day moving average. If it breaks that, I would be out. All right, some more trades that hit the tape today. ACAD. So again, aggressive call buying. We've seen this a couple times in the small cap biotech name. I said I will wait to the end of the day to see if it closes above the 200-day moving average. What did it do? It did not close above the intraday. It was above the 200-day moving average, but it did not close there. So I have to wait and stick to my system and wait for it to get above the 200-day moving average. Very interested in this one, just not yet, because again, I don't have a level to trade against if it doesn't work. It would be down here. But really what I'm looking for is this confirmation that this is getting back into an uptrend. So it can't get into an uptrend without getting above the 200-day moving average. I'm sitting, watching, and waiting on that one. A couple other ones that we saw, a lot of energy buying. So that's probably the last theme as I'm getting to about 15 minutes in the video. But we're seeing a whole bunch of different call buying in energy names, various different names. A lot of oil and gas, exploration and producers, PE. So you can evaluate one of these one by one and figure out which one that you like. AR got above the 200-day moving average yesterday, kind of came back and retested today. So if you don't want to deal with these individual names because maybe you don't want the single stock risk, or you're not that familiar, I'm not that familiar with Antero Resources or that PE stock, or what else have we been seeing in call buying in CBE? These are not names that I'm that familiar with. So what you could do is kind of use a core satellite approach. And what that means is you could use the ETF. So there's an ETF that has all of them in them, all of the exploration and producers in there. That's XOP. It's equally weighted, so the small cap names get the same exposure as the large cap names, and it moves. It's not just because it's an ETF, it doesn't mean it's not volatile. It's certainly a volatile name. But you could go long, let's say you have $5,000 to invest in this particular strategy, oil and gas strategy that you want to allocate to this group. You could go long, say $3,500 of XOP, and then spend the other $1,500 and put on a couple of single names. This way you have a little bit less exposure to those names that you're unfamiliar with, and you're still going to capture the move if the whole group goes up based on what oil is doing. And oil, I believe, did end up positive on the day as we wait for that to come up. But yeah, new high in oil today. It looks like the new session is also up on the weaker dollar, and as well the oil inventory report was out. So a lot of opportunities out there, a lot of aggressive call buying, but you want to pay attention to each one of these, devise your own system, and that's what we do in the trading room all day long. So obviously you can check us out, tribecatradegroup.com. You can email info@tribecatradegroup.com if you're looking to see how we do it on a day-to-day basis. But I think we're just having a great time, managing our positions well, being disciplined, and navigating this market. So thanks very much. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.